Have you ever looked at life to remind you of your worth? Well, you are not alone. I was speaking to a friend just about last week, and they were telling me about all the things that were going on in their life. And they were going through a pretty hard season. And first thing that came to my mind was, I don't think you remember who you are. I said, or even whose you are, because life will happen. And it happens quick, and it happens fast, and it happens constantly. I told him, I said, life has an amazing way of making us forget who we really are. It's not life's job to remind you of your worth, your value, and that you're called. Life on purpose, I think, makes us forget that we're called, that we're chosen, and that we're set apart. Unfortunately, that's just life. But the fortunate part is when David said, encourage yourself in the Lord. Even David, who was the king, had to have moments. And he said, God, life is happening to me. Like, my son's doing this, my wife is there, these subjects, the people I'm ruling over. Life was happening to him. And even he had to say, I encourage myself in the Lord, and remind himself of who he is. Because God is going to remind you who you are. Life will make you forget it, but God's job is to make you remember it. So don't look to life to remind you of your worth, that you're called, of what you're supposed to even do, because it will purposely always come back to remind you of another narrative. I think we think, if we get the success, if we get the plaque, or we get the awards, or people know us, or, if everyone remembers the accomplishments that we've done, that, we'll feel fulfilled, that we'll always remember of who we are. That's not necessarily true. You can get those awards, you get those plaques, you can hit the 1 million subscribers, but people will always find something new. Life will always come back around at you and throw you for another curveball, and quite frankly, remind you again of who you're not. It's never a constant cycle. It's the purposeful plan of the enemy to make you forget your value and your worth. And if you look for life to remind you of it, you will always feel empty. You're never going to feel fulfilled, and you're never going to remember, quite frankly, even like your value. You're not going to remember what you're worth. So never forget that you were set apart, that you were chosen, that you were called, and that God ordained you before he even knew you in your mother's womb. And know that God still has a plan for you. And don't look to life to remind you ever again. Remember, you are not alone. Bye.